Hello and welcome to the latest Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, John Bosch, for the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling wizard, basically, the doctor, if you will, of wrestling financials, Mr. Lavie, Margolin. Lavie, what's going on today, sir?
I am, but some people find that boring, and I'm owning that today. John, I was just looking at the various YouTubes and through the two-man power trip platform. I was like, oh, somebody just commented on our new video. I was like, what could it be? And then Violator_mode, who I'm assuming is still listening, right?
Yes.
Wrote, Dr. Lavie is the most boring person on earth. Are you trying to bore the hell out of everyone? And the answer is yes.
That is hilarious. What is going on with the Violator over there, man? Oh, wow.
I know. I feel violated.
Maybe that's just his gimmick, though. Maybe he's got to, do that. But hey, to each their own, I guess, Lavie. To each their own. You got to just brush it off. But the Violator is not happy with you.
Yeah, as long as you like and subscribe and share, it's all good.
Yes, exactly. So maybe from something boring to maybe going off to the different tangent here of something that isn't working. What is going on with WWE ID? What is going on with this whole thing? Because is this failing? I mean, it's weird. Like it came off with such promise, but all these people are leaving or getting cut or not being renewed, and we haven't really seen anybody get signed. What's the latest?
Yeah, the ID, right, it's coming out. Like people are starting to talk about it more. I think, what is it, Zeta Steel was the first person signed to ID, and you're hearing other people not being renewed. I think Kylie Ray, they were trying to like hold off, be like, when would it be not nice to cut her? She announced her pregnancy. We wish her well, but like, they didn't want to seem cruel or like, she can't actually perform anytime soon. So I don't know how that works with a developmental contract. Or how that's worked out, in the past. But the WWE idea, I don't know. Like it used to be every time that they would, like early on, the first few weeks, and then people got tired of it. The first time, like they'd be on an independent show, be like, "Oh my gosh, WWE has an affiliation, or they're allowing talent to go to Combat Zone or wherever," and like people would be excited. And then after a while, like it didn't mean much, and people just stopped talking about it. And I was on a show, or no, I wasn't on a show. I was at a show in Yonkers, which I reflected on a few months ago in the summer, and one of the ID talents was there. And he definitely stood out as like, somebody that did have a lot more potential, but it didn't really make a difference for the show. And like, what's it all for? We're about a year or a little bit less than a year now into it, and you're not seeing any talent movement. So from Grok, less than a year after the program's launch, no WWE ID signee has yet transitioned to a full WWE contract or made a notable on-screen impact in NXT, Raw, or SmackDown. The program is designed as a developmental pipeline, providing right of first refusal for WWE on any external offers, access to training at the Performance Center, and visibility through social media highlights and indie matches. Prospects continue wrestling on the independent circuit without booking restrictions, but none have been promoted to WWE's active roster or feature prominently in storylines. Now, Evolve, it's just 6-7 months after their premiere, and they're making money through Tubi, so that could be something. Even if they're not getting promoted, you have another outlet, and it's a hedge against other promotions getting exposure. But in terms of developmentally, just 7 months after the premiere, no Evolve exclusive talent has made a full transition to NXT or the main roster with ongoing storylines. Evolve is especially designed as a proving ground, with promotions based on consistent performance, win records, and evaluations by coaches. Prospects can appear in NXT dark matches or house shows as a bridge, but none from the core Evolve roster, Keanu Carver, Kaylee Armstrong, Trill London, have debuted there yet. I just watched one Evolve, and it was kind of boring and looked low rent. To me, I don't mind if somebody is just starting out. It just didn't seem well produced, and I never came back. John, you're closer to the ground and following these talents and so on. What do you think about both of these programs?
I haven't watched Evolve. Probably, I could kind of say maybe a couple months. I watched the first couple episodes. like, I get what it's designed to be. It's supposed to be look like an indie. It's supposed to be smaller. It's supposed to be kind of getting them ready for the next level, getting them ready for NXT. But I don't know who's really evolving, if you will. I don't really know. Maybe Callie Armstrong, the one girl, but I don't know really anybody else that's really getting a benefit from it, or what it's really accomplishing. I'm just not thinking. Something is missing. I feel like there's some missing ingredient there. Because I would think, here's the turn: like they sign the ID, then you get on Evolve, then you get on NXT, then you get a WB contract. That hasn't happened to anybody, not even close. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, that's like, as we were trying to figure it out a few months ago, sort of like what's the flow. And I think it is good if there's different ways of getting in somewhere. I know at certain times WWE would be like, well, we're not signing any indie talent, or like, they had issues with like allegedly, right, with contract tampering. We're not signing any talent that's ever worked for TNA or whatever back in the day, and like this is going to be the only outlet. But then somebody's talented and they come along and they get there. So it's good to have these different avenues. But in terms of your formal program, there should be some sort of progression or progress or evaluation. Obviously, we're seeing ID. It might just be that people flow through for 6 months, a year, whatever, and then if it doesn't work out, then you wouldn't be under ID forever. So it might be something that like we look back on in 3 years and then say, okay, this is the talent that actually did break through. Because sometimes you see that, like, let's say like with the relaunched ECW on Sci-Fi, and you're like, this kind of sucks. But then years later, you're like, oh, okay, this was where Kofi Kingston and obviously CM Punk was not, but like that sort of thing where people did get a chance to break through. So it's probably early for developmental, but I would think that you would see more at this point. And maybe Gabe Sapolsky, I've been a fan of his ROH stuff, and Evolve I was a fan of. And then I made jokes about his seminars, and he blocked me on X or whatever. But I don't know. Does he have an eye for talent that are like WWE, prospects, meaning that larger than life people that don't do 50 flips or whatever it may be. So maybe there's like a mismatch in that way.
I don't know what's going on. It's interesting because if this was the idea all along, wouldn't you kind of push somebody along that you knew was going to be somebody? You know what I mean? Like, let's not inflate it or fake it, but you have somebody that can go through the system and kind of make them be the showpiece, if you will. Like, hey, this is how we want it done. This is how to do it. This is how to go through the system, and show the pieces, be like just like they did. Like, hey, Alexa Bliss was in NXT. She would never wrestled before. She's in NXT, and then she goes. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of show you with some guys in NXT. With this system, I was hoping that you would get that. There's been no kind of fluidity, if you will, with it. And Gabe, in the past, he's been a great booker, and everything he's done, he's had a great eye for talent. So it's just interesting that WWE on their end kind of hasn't been flourishing with this.
Yeah, what's interesting is if you establish low expectations, I mean, this wouldn't be sustainable as a developmental system, but like for like a one-time angle, like let's say, right, New Japan signed this guy like from judo, who's going to debut at the Tokyo Dome. But if it was like the same cultural resonance, like for like a judo player or an MMA person, whoever it is, where they would have a name and WWE wants to push them, like you could have them like cut through the system, like, okay, here they're debuting here on Evolve, and then suddenly they're like, boom, they're like pinning people in 20 seconds, or like you send them on the ID tour and it's just like devastation everywhere. And then by the time they get to NXT or SmackDown, you have this like narrative of 6 months of them like having this sort of run.
Yep, for sure. Aaron Wolf, by the way, is the judoka.
Besides being boring, people know that I'm very bad at names, but I just need enough of a picture, and John never lets us down.
Yes. That, by the way, will be his debut. They're really pumping that up, and then separately, Tanahashi's retirement. So that we'll get into New Japan later. But that should be a pretty big. Wrestle Kingdom 20. That should be pretty big, maybe to get New Japan back in the flow of things. But we could talk about that later on. It's just interesting, like Trill London or Callie Armstrong, they didn't end up kind of being the test study, if you will, because it seems like they loved them and they could be something, but just I don't know. They got to do something with this system because it hasn't been working.
Yeah, it's sort of finding their way, right? Because like, especially in this corporate model, whenever you see potential for something, you always want to make it bigger, right? It's like they had a good thing going with, I mean, they still do, but had a good thing going with NXT, but then it's sort of like, okay, at certain times it's the third brand, so we have to like promote it a certain way, let's get rights out of it or whatever. So like, if you were even to get Evolve going and, you know, to get rights, or you made some sort of WWE ID program, then they're like, they stop looking at it as developmental, and then they're always trying to like monetize it. So maybe it is like the type of world where it does have to be an NXT, TNA, or you know, something like that, where people can thrive out of the system, and then when they're ready, you know, come into it.
Very kind of intriguing, just like of where they can get talent from and kind of where they can pull talent and bring them up. And this was just, I guess, another avenue. And TNA seems to be an avenue that they're using right now to be using. And then they sign them NXT and then so on and so forth. And obviously it's working so far because NXT TNA destroyed AEW in the ratings on Tuesday. But that just seems like WWE ID Evolve was like another facet and that kind of on the way up. And now it's just like, forget about that. Let's just use the TNA guys.
Yeah, and not to skip ahead to TNA section, John, but I just saw this before we started recording. Did you see that TNA tweet where like it started out with a picture of Madison Square Garden?
No.
Okay, so it's like sort of like it's like a retrospective.
Oh, about the Hardys Dudleys feud,
Yeah.
right?
Can you imagine like the TNA fans be like, "Oh my God, we finally did it! Carlos Silva did it! We're gonna sell out Madison Square Garden," and then like, "Oh, okay, whoops, never mind."
Right. I saw something, but it was the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys. So the TNA posted that. Wow. So they're almost teasing you with a little MSG action there. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, you know, a second later you see, you know, it written in the video, but like,
Yep.
you know, just like you always like, this is like the dream. You always wanted that.
Yes.
And, like, WWE is gonna deliver this for us. They're gonna give us the Garden.
Yes. Now, New Japan Pro Wrestling did actually sell out Madison Square Garden, believe it or not, 2019. So crazy, you know, think what could have been with some things. But how about the American Dream maybe turning into a nightmare now for New Japan Pro Wrestling? Because 2019, top of the world. What about now?
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge this interesting article by Nicholas Mullick from Total Apex Sports. As you said, the title, Why New Japan is Retreating from the U.S. Market. So this is something that we've been talking about for a long, long time. And then it got on more of the pro wrestling press's radar by Sean Ross Sapp, the tall guy from the, you know,
Fightful.
Fightful, talking about, you know, having some insider information on what was obvious. This article, I think, summed it up well, which allows us, I think, to dissect it a little bit more also. Remember when New Japan thought they could waltz into America and steal some thunder from WWE? The Land of the Rising Suns premier wrestling promotion has been running fewer shows in America, and it's clear that those promised expansion plans are on hold. This isn't exactly shocking. Numbers don't lie. Statistics paint a pretty grim picture of stateside ambitions. Through August, the company managed to drag themselves across the Pacific 3 times. Compare that to 6 ventures in 2024, 8 in 2023, and you're looking at a promotion full retreat. We're talking about a company that once had grand visions of becoming a legitimate competitor in America. Remember Strong Brand? That was supposed to be their secret weapon, their way of utilizing all the American talent they'd signed. Wrestlers don't just want to make the trip anymore. Here's where things get really interesting and embarrassing. According to sources, some of their own wrestlers are basically saying thanks, but no thanks when it comes to American tours. Can you imagine being so enthusiastic about expanding your brand that your own talent doesn't want to participate? This reluctance from the roster speaks volumes about the state of American operations. Ticket sales. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Nobody's buying tickets. According to industry insiders, declining attendance has become a major factor to scale back. The harsh reality is that America's wrestling fans have more options than many other independent promotions. But they did have, for Tanahashi's retirement in America, or last match in America in Chicago, 5,500 fans. So sort of like when we think back to New Japan's U.S. Golden Days, outside of that Madison Square Garden show, right, a great attendance was like 7,000 in California. So not so far off, but not something that could be replicated. AEW, you can't discuss New Japan without AEW. AEW marked itself as the promotion for fans who wanted serious wrestling, great matches, and international talent. It was essentially New Japan's American business model, except with better marketing, cash flow, more accessible program. And of course, COVID changed everything. So I think this is all like good points. But first of all, like a promotion that's based internationally that will always prioritize Japan, you would never have enough talent accessible all the time in order to be a full-time promotion here. But they didn't really need to be. I think where they sort of like lost that window was when they were getting a little bit ahead of Ring of Honor. They had to collaborate together, use each other to grow, and they sort of could have broken out. And it seemed like they had something there with Mark Cuban. I was even thinking, like, I have no idea if this was ever considered, that Mark Cuban would sort of be what Tony Khan kind of became for AEW, sort of like running New Japan in the US, having Dallas as a base, Access TV. But they weren't like proactive enough. And then I think bad relations with AEW really hurt them. Right, AEW gave them a chance to partner. They had sent our friend Buki Ghana, as the story goes, over there, and New Japan was kind of insulted that it wasn't Tony Khan. And then AEW really pulled the talent. Talking about MSG, right? Even the Young Bucks didn't even compete on that show, and Kenny Omega didn't compete on that show after they were going to AEW.
Crazy kind of turn of events. 6 years later, where we're at with that, just crazy to kind of look back and think like, wow, another company stole that Madison Square Garden. Where are they today? And basically, kind of a lot less than what they were then. Like, I guess that was the mountaintop, if you will. That was the peak.
Yeah, and it was really tremendous, because we forget like how hard it really was to draw more than 1,500 fans for any brand that wasn't WWE at the time. TNA had been so far down. There was no AEW. Maybe you'd have like a one-off thing, in a small town, like where you'd have these records once in a while. GCW wasn't anywhere near there yet. So it was really impressive what they were doing. But they could have grown more. I don't think they could have been what AEW is today. And I don't think that Ring of Honor could have either. But both promotions could have been more aggressive and grown more and sort of staked their place in the market at the time.
What is going on in the world of MLW? Because it seems like Court Bauer is over there in Los Angeles. What is he doing over there? Is he trying to perhaps pick up something?
My opinion is not much is going on, but there's certain chatter, kind of make warm things up, keep things going on. Hot Stove League. Mike Johnson is reporting that Court Bauer was in LA the last few days after Slaughterhouse event. PW Insider is told Bauer was meeting with potential media partners. I wonder who told Mike Johnson that Court Bauer was meeting with potential partners. The old newsletter thing. That's just my speculation. The promotion has been ramping up staff with the idea they would return to producing a weekly TV series. One has to think Bauer may have been shopping to her prospective partner. Okay, so like maybe they have a TV show because maybe they're talking to partners. Like MLW is reportedly exploring a possibility of a residency. Fightful Select reports that MLW is going out to Nashville this week for site surveys on some buildings to explore that possibility. I do like the idea of a residency. It's that sort of thing where it's like, sometimes when you're established in the 2300 arena forever, people just get tired of it and stop going. But like if you do multiple days of tapings, it kind of gets stale if you're watching it. But like it's kind of like an experience for people in the city if that's what they're looking for. And then there's this intriguing event here that's been on the radar, the Don Gato Tequila Lucha de los Muertos show in Charleston Music Hall. Tickets have been increasing as we are still 5-6 weeks out of November 20th. There are 372 tickets have been distributed thus far. 607 setup, and a total of 959 seats on the map.
Interesting kind of thing. We're always talking about something with MLW, like the Don Gatto stuff. Like there's always Paul Walter Hauser. There's always something interesting going on in the world. He's hanging out in LA. I'm sure Paul Walter Hauser maybe is involved in these meetings, maybe. And who knows with MLW. I do like some of the talent that they have right now. It's just interesting to kind of see where they end up, where they tape. Because remember they taped in Philly for a while. Now they haven't been in Philly for a while. So it's interesting to see where they end up.
Yeah, I think it was like a good thing for them at the time, especially when they had to have that austerity. I think they are, again, like sort of carving out their own niche, which is a hard thing to do in the market. Like, a lot of their talent doesn't necessarily float now to, all the other promotions. An MLW talent isn't on all the GCW, the TNA shows, things like that. They kind of have their own thing going. Where else does Mystico appear regularly? In the US, you have Matt Riddle becoming a heel now and cutting what seemed to be an angle at TMZ. You have the Mads Kruger thing, and John, I'm surprised Mads Kruger. I think he was on your show without the mask, right? I had no idea what he looked like. I mean, I could have investigated, but I had no idea until that time. So that was really interesting. Of course, getting Killer Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux, Donovan Dijak. We've talked about the lucha influence of CMLL. So keeping things going, they have that settlement money still to work through. It's just hard to know in this media market, like, where would they break through and how, and what sort of need is there in the market?
So as far as TNA is concerned, what is the latest going on with TNA? Because Bound for Glory is right around the corner.
So a few days since an update from WrestleTix, but it was certainly edging towards 5,000 as they jumped in the last update, 251 tickets. So at that time, there was 5 days to go. Now there's 2 days to go, October 12th. I don't think they're, I've been wrong before, John. I don't think they're going to break their all-time record with this venue potentially maxing out at 7,418 seats on the map. They have a current setup of 5,463. The way they jump, and maybe if they're comping and give it to the veterans and all that, like you could get there and maybe exceed that. So curious to see. I think it's hard. Like they sort of tried that same strategy, not getting all the same media because you're not in the New York market, and it's hard to draw in Lowell. But kind of that same strategy. Okay, let's talk about television again. Let's talk about Joe Henry again. Let's get some like headlines in that way. But obviously, very good number. I think they just set themselves up for disappointment when you're saying like I want to break the record again. But sometimes you have to be that ambitious, and they're doing quite well with that number.
Hey, 5,000 people though, pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, and it just shows like how far TNA has come or come back from that. We can look at it and be like, oh, okay, it's not 7, it's 5, but obviously for their position, it's amazing. They're getting a lot of support from WWE. Where will it all lead to? That's the question.
So as far as GCW is concerned, we're talking about Northeast and doing shows Northeast. GCW is doing damn shows in Alaska. What the heck's going on? This is awesome.
Yeah, and maybe this will be the last time I talk about this show. I really analyze the Alaska shows, but 907 Pro Wrestling, I guess the Alaskan flank of the independent scene, Alaska showed up and showed out tonight at Frontier. Couldn't be more proud of our guys, and it was great to be part of this amazing show, which is great because if you're that far out, you don't often get to collaborate. But as we know, in Alaska, there's not a lot of people. So when I look at this picture of showed up and showed out, this is like 3 rows of people, and there's like plenty more room, for chairs and all that sort of thing. So they might have showed up and showed out, but there weren't a lot of people. I hate to like whatever about that, but it's just stunning to me, like the cost what's a flight to Alaska from like New York or California? Is it direct? It must have been like a tremendous cost. Like there's no, there was no like, okay, we're in the middle of going to like Russia, right? Or somewhere like Canada. It was just go and come back, and then you're suddenly somewhere different. Obviously, this was all calculated, and they'll be fine or they are fine, whatever it is. But it's just amazing to me. But that's the last time I'm going to say that. But what else is going on with GCW? So Wichita, Kansas, I think another one for Brett to check off that map. I think he doesn't count them till they happen. So I think it's 32 states now, so 18 to go. I think with some of their upcoming shows, maybe 3 or 4 that they'll knock out. So it looks like a cool venue, a brand new venue in Wichita, Kansas, the indoor portion. They're going to be closer to you this weekend, John, quietly for Fight Club and Fight Club Night 2. As of this recording on a Friday, there are plenty of second row tickets available both nights. For some reason, less available in the third row. I guess maybe people trying to save a little bit of money there. A show that is tracking really well is the return to Rochester. Like we've talked about before, Shotzi Blackheart's House of Horrors. It's just great visual, great time of year, really strong market for them at the moment. Massacre in Maine and then Vermont in November. The main show has third row available still. I think, given the small size of that venue and working with Limitless, I can't see that not selling out in advance. Vermont, a little bit slower at the moment, 10 or more tickets left in the second and third row. The Dream On show at the mall is looking good at the moment. First 2 rows are sold out there. Just in terms of upcoming into the new year, so Atlantic City, Rochester this month, then November Hartford, Yarmouth, Bear, Vermont, East Rutherford, and then in December, Seattle, LA. A to be announced on December 13th. They might have announced it because I saw they announced some more shows, and then a couple of shows we don't have in January, but a couple we do. Dallas and Wichita. Oh, I think they're going back to Chicago, and I forgot what the last venue is.
What about the world of WoW? I can't even believe this. 25 years of WoW. Is this a fact? Is this true?
Yeah, it's sort of like MLW, right? They sort of emerged in like post ECW, WCW era, and then they went away for a long time. Kind of WoW was similar. So 25 years, history was made. October 6, 2000, WoW hit the airwaves for the very first time with an unforgettable battle royal to crown the inaugural WoW champion. From that night to today, the legacy has only grown louder, prouder, and stronger. So they're 25 years, but they're still kind of like in a startup phase, right? Like there hasn't been like too much momentum outside of the wide distribution and syndication, which might be sort of the ultimate goal here and the best that they can do outside of developing more marketable stars in which you can tour, you sell merchandise, get more international deals and that sort of thing. And next week begins their Fremont Street experience, or maybe call that residency too. October 14th, 15th, 21st, 22nd. Women of Wrestling is bringing the grit and glam to the heart of downtown LA. When the superheroes battle at the world-famous Fremont Street experience, fans will experience action-packed shows, one of the most iconic destinations in the world. Each evening begins with a meet and greet, followed by a spectacular live show that kicks off at 6 with Las Vegas Knights and wowing announcer Katie Marie Jones. Admission is free and open to all. So they'll have this basically it's open market tapings over 4 days, and I assume this will carry them through like the whole year and maybe even to the following season.
That's just crazy to me that, wow, like 25 years. Holy moly, it's crazy. And I got to love McLean and GD Bus, but that's crazy. 25 years, nice.
Yeah, props to McLean, having this friendship, cultivating this relationship, growing this together, it's still being around. And listen, they have like the syndicated ratings, which are some of the best ratings anyone is doing. Maybe the fourth most watched show, or something like that, or definitely top five. But where they go from here, maybe with the cost low, it could go on like here forever, as long as there's syndicated television, and even if not, as long as Jeannie Buss is still intrigued to a certain degree. She's not going to spend anything on it, but as long as it makes sense to her, then it'll keep going.
So, you mentioned ratings, and I wanted to talk to you about this. I know we didn't mention this beforehand, but I wanted to talk to you about the Nielsen ratings, this new way that they're tracking these ratings. You got big data plus panel now. So obviously it's a lot different. And if you go to WrestleJoy, I know they did a great job breaking it down, put it into layman's terms. Then you go over to WrestleNomics, Brandon, our boy BTZ, he did a great job breaking it down and what it means. And he even has charts of like how to read what it means here versus here, and how the old Nielsen was operating, how the new. What do you think about this new Nielsen big data plus panel rating? Because now they're going to be taking a bigger sample size, and supposedly this will improve accuracy. Are you liking this, or what? Or not?
Yeah, I know that there was some panic, and kind of Dave Meltzer seeing like kind of looking at like in a more simple sort of way. I'm not shaming him, just in terms of like the way that the reaction was. I think like it was like the first wrestling ratings came back bad, but now some of them are coming back better. So I think whenever there's a new system, there's a new way of judging it. Interestingly, and I have to listen to both of those resources or to learn more, as I haven't done that. But I would think like if you are incorporating more, then like the ratings would be larger. But here it just seems to be like, okay, we're just getting more accurate now. So it might be lower than we even thought. So that's like, that was the main thing that like I was thinking about. Of course, the huge question mark, which we don't have answered and may never, as long as they're on there, the HBO Max, right? Like if it's counting traditional and streaming and whatever, and you're not counting Max, then you're losing out on that. Somebody has to be counting it if they have ads and you're selling them as a package, whatever it may be. But I don't think it's totally going to disrupt the industry. I saw some reporting like that WWE is panicking because TNA might not get a TV deal, because if ratings are lower and then the expectations for TNA are lower, then it won't be the threshold to get a deal. I think it's sort of like with WWE, look how well they're doing, in terms of live events. It's like huge attendances, and like they hadn't done attendances like this since they had ratings, not the Monday nights, but like since it was much more popular, right? Like, so It can't be that just 1 million people are watching SmackDown. Like, people are accessing this in whatever ways, whether it's later and it's not counted, whether it's streaming, whether it's clips and cuts and whatever it may be. So like the ratings is an easy thing to look at because it's like something that's been around forever. But that's why you can't just look at one thing. But that's why like I always find it more interesting to look at like live events to judge it. It's no longer like so goes the garden, so goes the business, because they don't run there enough and it's not the main business point now. But like when you look at attendance, you can kind of know like how's a company doing. Like if they can't draw and like interest is down, like with AEW at certain points, then you can see it in the rating, in the attendance. And with WWE, when they're doing well and they're hot, they can do really well. And we talk about expensive tickets, so it should be even more difficult to draw. And they keep getting like, what is it, over 10,000 average just for the Raw and SmackDown, not even counting the premium live events.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think people were panicking, but I don't know if there's really any need to panic. I mean, they have their deals in place, and I know they're nervous about the TNA deal, but I don't know. I feel like they just panic just to panic. Just relax, let it kind of situate itself. Because NXT did good on Tuesday night with the rating, kind of right in line with where they normally are. Plus, you add in 300,000 for AEW, they probably would have done even better had they were not been head to head. So I think people were kind of panicking. Maybe unwarranted.
Yeah, and it could be like, okay, it worked for WWE, but it doesn't work for AEW. So like that sort of thing. Selective. I was trying to take a bird's eye view too as well, kind of like scan back to see like, okay, how has this affected other sports and other programming? From what initial reports were that it was really good for sports, but I'd have to understand that better. So it'll take some time to learn, and probably even Nielsen will adjust and be like, okay, we thought we were there 90% there, but we're going to be like adjusting the way that we do things exactly to hit even better in the future.
Now, are you going to go out there and read Brandon Thurston's WrestleNomics and read the Big Data Plus Panel awesome link that he put out there? Are you going to be reading that? You better be reading that.
Of course, I'll have to read that. I think like sometimes when I get busy, the best way to consume all that great content is through the podcast, of course, with John Pollock. And when they discuss these things, when I get busy at work or if I'm writing the book, sometimes the written word doesn't always work as well. But I love to go back to that too. So, John, did you end up seeing the Smashing Machine?
No, not yet, but I do honestly plan on seeing it this weekend. So I will let you know, but I won't probably be seeing it this weekend because my son wants to see Tron. So we're going to see Tron, but I also want to see Smashing Machine. So I might have to do that by myself because I don't know if he'll want to see it. He loves The Rock, but I don't know if he'll want to see Smashing Machine. It's not up his alley. It's not, he doesn't know about Pride, tournaments and everything else. And he doesn't know about Igor Vovchantin and guys like that. So maybe not, but I do want to see Tron and I want to see Smashing Machine. Did you see it yet?
I didn't see it yet, and what I'm afraid of is, right, it did so bad in the box office that it'll probably still be running in New York City, but like it'll be like like twice a day.
Yeah, that's the fear. That's the fear because the timing. So I hopefully have a good time to see it Sunday morning. As the Giants already won, by the way, while we're recording, so I don't have to worry about Sunday football. So I can go out and enjoy a movie without having to worry about the Giants on Sunday. So I got to do that. But you're right though. If it doesn't do good, they're going to give it less times at the theater. Damn, I hate that.
Speaking of sports, since when is the ALCS a best of 5? I thought it was a best of 7.
So it's not the CS, it's the DS. We're only in divisional series.
Oh, okay.
There's an extra round. So the first round is 3, then 5, then 7, then 7. So the CS hasn't happened yet. So it's the DS that only 5.
It's just because the holidays kept falling out on the Yankee games, so I kept getting the reports later. I'm like, okay, they're in the hole now, 3-1. We still have a shot, and they're like, it's over. Because I remember the wild card is short, right? Because it used to be like there used to be like an extra day, right? Like you have to win 2 teams, you have to win, and then there was like a 3 series.
Yep. But now there's an extra team in. 2 teams get buys, so there's a 3-game series, and then with the four teams on the AL, 3 series, 4 teams on the NL, and then after the 3-game series is over, then it goes 5-game series, then it goes to 7, then it goes to the World Series.
I'm surprised they haven't gotten greedy because, like with football, right, there's too many injuries or whatever. But baseball, you can basically, you'll burn out some of the pitchers, but you can basically keep going. I'm surprised that they haven't done like best of 7, like maybe not for like the first wild card because that's like a special thing, but like for some of the lower divisions.
It is. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of baseball, but I do enjoy the playoffs. Although now I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it because the Yankees are out and my boy Schwarber and the Phillies are out too. So I don't know if I'm going to. Don't know if I'm that into the rest of the teams. I hate the Dodgers.
Really? Okay. I kind of like. I've never cheered for them, but it kind of has been like New York type of thing. Like my son was on the Little League Dodgers team, and like he just wears the ball cap. He doesn't really care. He likes the Yankees, but he doesn't follow much. Like these really old people are like the Dodgers. I remember when, and we're kind of like awkwardly, okay, yes,
yes.
We don't really care, but I'm glad you're excited.
So Smashing Machine, the one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up about that is everyone's going crazy saying The Rock will head back to WWE because it didn't do well, this and that. I'm thinking possibly opposite here. And you tell me what you think. I think that this, because it didn't do well, I think it helps his Oscar chances. They love those underground movies. They don't like popular movies. And he did such a good job. He transformed his life. He transformed his body. He did a completely different role. I feel like he might get Oscar contention. Then he might not come back to WWE.
I think, yeah, I mean, I know, what was it? The first like film festival, he got like a standing ovation. So that would be like, very meaningful. What was it like in terms of body transformation? A very different way. I remember, what was it? The Whale, with like the guy that was in the Muppets, right? Like,
Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser.
Sending me again. Brendan Fraser, right? Like, I was like, before I knew like there was The Whale, and whatever. I'm not judging Phil, but I saw him at award shows, and I was like, he got fat. I didn't realize like that it was like that it was actually like film related. And people get older or whatever, but that got like a huge amount of attention. But speaking about like demographics, as I'm kind of like sort of deep into this, like my son now, he now that he does karate, he doesn't watch a lot of MMA, but like if I'm watching, he'll kind of like see if it intrigues him a little bit. Like, are you like hesitant to have your son watch those compared to like wrestling, or like do you want to introduce it to him more when he's older? Like, what do you think about that?
I actually tried to introduce to him because he was doing some MMA training. He was doing some wrestling training, just a little bit, nothing like too serious or too crazy. But we brought him to the gym and stuff, and he was doing things. And he didn't really like, because we watched MMA. Didn't really have interest. He didn't really care for it or like it. He just basically he liked wrestling. I think the spectacle of it, it's so cool when you're there, and the music and the pomp and circumstance. So he wasn't really caring for MMA, to be honest, or even like kickboxing and boxing. He didn't really care to watch either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my son has been more, he's not big on any of them, but like more into like the wrestling. Like he'll watch the, you know what? Actually, it was interesting. Like I love Glory, although I don't get a chance to watch it much. I still can't figure out the DAZN thing. But they had one free match, which like I think it was Rico Verhoeven versus Jamal Ben Sadiq. It was like one of these all-time classics.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it would be like that gory. It was like I forgot who's one of their legs that got like split open or just like gushing. I just like, I'll just introduce you to kickboxing. This is your first match, and like I was kind of like, oh my god, like what did I like introduce him to? But he was kind of getting into it, but just because I think it's just kickboxing is just so exciting, like when it's like big, like athletic heavyweights. But I think there's that like association with the U.S. like it's not boxing, and like kickboxing feels like a 70s thing. People won't give it a chance, even though it's like half of MMA when you're standing up.
Pretty cool though. He can say he saw Rico Verhoeven fight because he's awesome. He's been undefeated forever.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm not sure if you went to any of the shows, John, at the time. Glory had 3 shows in New York City, which were awesome.
No, I never went, but I watched them on TV. Though they were awesome. Cool atmosphere.
Yeah, 2 at the Hammerstein and 1 at the theater at the Garden. And cool. The Hammerstein had great seats. It was just like, I was just like, this is amazing. This is my next thing. And at the theater at the Garden, it was expensive. It was interesting. You could see like there were plants in the crowd, like beautiful models that were like sitting there, and like they were in front of us, so they were just like scrolling through their Instagram. They had like 0 interest in what was going on. But I think it was like a smart move to try and like make it a cool thing. And then I was excited, like K1. It seemed like that they would have that show in New York. They had the poster already, but the athletic commission didn't let them have a tournament here, and that's why that fell through.
Was one of those when Andy Christie upset Giorgio Petrosian and knocked him out? Was that in New York? Was that at one of those New York shows? I could have sworn it was. That was crazy.
The actual matches like escape me. It's just like it was just like the whole thing was like so exciting, especially the ones like at the Hammerstein. I was just like, this is amazing. I haven't like it was sort of like that transition where it'd be like Pride, I think Pride was gone, or maybe it was on its last legs at the time. And like the UFC, I still liked it, but there were so many shows now that like you didn't have the depth of talent. So I was kind of getting tired of like Dana White just like dominating like every broadcast and like just being the face all the time. And like just when I discovered, I was just like, this is amazing.
Yes, look at my memory there. It's correct. The theater at Madison Square Garden where Risti beat Giorgio Petrosian. That was a huge upset. And then he won the main event against Robin Roosmalen, too. So huge night there for Andy Risti, who kind of, faded a little bit after that. But huge night there in New York, yeah, for Glory. That show was awesome.
Yeah, and what's interesting now, I mean, you do have it a lot more in the UFC now, but like in terms of all like fight sports that are at least based here in the US, like you don't have a lot of that like Netherlands, Sweden, all that sort of thing. So it's like it's a different look and a different feel to the fighters and the way that they approach things.
All right, Lavie. Let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2ManPowerTrip. How about you, Lavie?
Yeah, so if you think I'm boring or not, give us a positive review, rate, like, review, share. My daughter was impressed by the number of stars that we had on, what was it, Spotify or one of those things. I was like, well, we've been around 254
Nice.
episodes,
Yep.
plus one, plus a special. And we just had a new member or two this week on the LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business, pro wrestling, news, jobs, etc. So go out there and find that. We'd love to get to 150 and keep growing.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next time for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.